Okay, many Americans do not have an emergency fund. How about you? All right, we're going to get into this one, but before we do, I'd like to ask you to go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell if you find my content valuable. This way, YouTube will push this content out to others that might need this information, just like you. All right, let's get into this one. Many Americans do not have an emergency fund, and I wonder where you're at, okay? What do you have in the bank right now? Is it adequate to even capture a small emergency if it comes along? I just read recently a study that 1 in 3 Americans do not even have any emergency savings. And of those that do have emergency savings, the average is about $500 saved for emergencies. Often $500 is not enough to capture the emergencies that people run into, especially today with the cost of everything climbing much higher. Now, I want to digress to say that, if you were to come to me and tell me, hey, that's all I've got. I've got less than $500. I've got $200 that I can save. Well, go ahead and save that $200. Get that money working for you in terms of being there for you when you have any small emergency. But let's look at the reality here now. Things are costing more. If anything happens to your car, like I think recently we had our hot water heater go out. That was over $1,000 emergency that we had to tend to. I also think about insurance and the deductibles on these health insurance plans. Some of them are in the $2,000 to $3,000 range. This is a lot bigger hit than $500. And so we need to be thinking about these things. Again, do what you can. Go ahead and get things started, but also be looking at that challenges are more expensive nowadays. So you're going to probably have a bigger challenge than a $500 emergency fund will be able to capture. And think about it, this is our beginner emergency fund, something to start with. What I often recommend is to start with a $2,000 emergency fund. There's actually research that shows that a $2,000 emergency fund causes financial well-being, where people feel like they have some control if you get to that $2,000 mark. I think about coming up here soon, we have an event coming up. Tax season, tax returns. Many of you, and maybe you, are going to get a tax return. A perfect time to earmark the money from that tax return to start your starter emergency fund of at least $2,000 so that you can start to capture the emergencies. Also, there's another concept that I like to talk about your money, and starting with this starter emergency fund. You want your money to work as hard as you do. I know that you work hard for your money, going in and doing the things that you do to bring in revenue. You also want your money to work that hard for you. What I recommend is once you get that starter emergency fund, to put it in something called a high yield savings account, okay? What is a high yield savings account? All it is a savings account that pays you a higher amount of interest than your typical savings account that you might have at your brick and mortar bank. Many high yield savings accounts are online. They have no brick and mortar presence. Therefore, they're able to save all of the money that they would have with a building, with having air conditioning in a building, to having maintenance in a building, and even having the staff to take care of that building and actually workers to work there. An online bank has a lot less of those types of expenses. And so they're able to pass that along to you in terms of a high yield savings account. Now, at the time of the taping of this video, high yield savings accounts are paying an annual percentage rate or an annual percentage of about 3 to 4%, okay? So I'm going to use a number 3.5%. And by the way, I use a bank called CIT Bank. That's an online bank. They have a product called their Savings Connect product that pays 3.65% annual APR, annual percentage rate, okay? But again, I'm going to use 3.5 to make it a little bit easier for me, the math in this a little bit easier, okay? At a 3.5% rate, if you were to put $2,000 into a high yield savings account and left it there for a whole year, you would earn about $70 at 3.5%. That comes up to almost $6 a month that you would be making over that year. Now you might say that's a small amount, but I like to think about it this way. There's an acronym that I use. It's BMI. As I'm kind of framing things, as I go for goals and try and conceptualize things that I'm going after. And BMI, I learned in school, is body mass index. That helps me to remember it. But in finance and in goals and going after things, it's behavior, one, that's the B. Mindset is the M, and I is increase. If you have the right behaviors plus the right mindset, it's more likely that you're going to increase the likelihood that you have long-term success. And so by doing these things, by starting that starter emergency fund and actually having your money work hard just like you do, you're setting up a behavior and a mindset that your money, that you're going to put it to work, that it's going to earn you more money. That mindset is going to serve you well as you increase what you actually have in savings, and later on as you become an investor and invest in assets. You're already laying down the behaviors, you're already laying down the mindset that your money is going to be a soldier in your battle to actually have more income from your money. In other words, you're putting your money to work just like you work, okay? This is important to do. And BMI is a great way to actually think about things. Again, have the right behaviors and the right mindset. And with your money, you want to put your money to work. You want it earning more money, okay? And so you're starting small now. You put that $2,000 in, and at the current rates for high yield savings, that translates to about $6 per month. But in the future, you're going to have a fully funded emergency fund, and things get exciting there as far as the monthly income that's coming in from your money from the high yield savings account. So it gets exciting in the future, but it's really exciting right now because you're laying down those behaviors. You're getting your mindset right, and that leads to increase. That leads to higher probability that you're going to have sustained results, okay? So this is a really, really great thing. Now I'm going to digress a little bit to talk about if it's in your mind that, hey, how do I get to $2,000? Well, like I said, that tax season is coming up. Why not earmark that tax return for that high yield savings account rather, to get that starter emergency fund started? Maybe you can sell something. Maybe you can start a side hustle, like people drive these delivery services and things like that. One thing that I do as my side hustle is I actually sell used books on Amazon that I pick up at estate sales, thrift shops, garage sales, and different places like that. So you can do those sorts of things to get this going, to get that $2,000 into something like a high yield savings account. The other thing that you can do is what we talked about monitoring and managing your money, eliminating those bills that are not necessary for you to create that margin to where you can actually get that $2,000 into a high yield savings account. You need this emergency fund because something is going to happen. I don't know what it's going to be for you, but something is going to happen. Recently, we had our hot water heater actually go out on us, a little over $1,000 repair. Something's going to go wrong with your car, battery, alternator, some other fix that needs to be done so that you're able to get to work and back. That kind of emergency. Or we mentioned the insurance, the health insurance. What if something happens to you to where you need to get that deductible paid for so that you can be treated and taken care of medically if something happens to you? An emergency that is a medical emergency. You want to have this in place so that you are ready. Think about these things. Make sure that you have your emergency fund in place. Again, if you find my content valuable, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell. Let's get that emergency fund, starter emergency fund in place this year very, very quickly. Thanks again for listening.